Hello, I'd like you to start today by just clicking on that YouTube link in between the two picture images there. That's about 9.5 minutes of some video clips of adverts from some time ago. And whilst you're watching it, I want you to think about what was the view of man 50 years ago? And do you think this has changed in your household? So think about how things are in your family and see if you think things have changed from what you watch from this video clip. As I say, it's about 10 minutes long, 9.5 minutes. So press pause on me, press click on that link and off you go. Title for today's lesson then, how has the role of men changed? Put that title into your book please with today's date. And a little definition for your glossary. We need to first think about the traditional man of the house. So some notes for you here and also something for your glossary. So first of all, for your glossary, masculinity. When we're talking about masculinity, we're referring to the qualities, character and behaviour traits that we expect to see in men. And then a few notes for your books. In the traditional way, so we're talking about 1950s, 60s, 70s, men were hard-working breadwinners, so they were the main wage earners who expected to come home from work to be waited on by their woman who'd waited at home for them. And then she would get them their cup of tea or their pint and their paper and their meal, and they would just have to sit for the rest of their evening chilling out. They usually had little involvement in childcare and housework, but they were the figure of authority in the house and they were seen as the head of the household. They had the highest status and were respected, and boys were raised to be the same. So there was a lot of, you wait till your father comes home type behaviours from the woman, because the man was very much in charge and the one that the children feared and so on. So this role has started to change. We need to consider then why this role of man has changed, why what it is to be a man has changed within our society today. So I want you just to have a think about why you think that might be before we go further and look at what various sociologists have said. Use the images in the circles for you to get some ideas. So you can see we've got things about women in the workplace there in the centre circle, the role of man and the job that they do changing in one of the circles, and the idea of how man behaves within his family in one of the circles. Use those to just prompt your thoughts as to why you think the role of men has changed in society. And can you think of any other reasons, anything that doesn't refer to those three areas in the circles? Any other things that you think are a factor in why men are not performing the same role that they used to? So on the next slide after this one, there are a load of statements for you. And what you need to do is put these statements into positive effects of the change and negative effects of the change. So we're not denying a change has taken place. Absolutely it has. What are the good things about that change? What are the negatives about that change? And another really important term for your glossary is this idea of the crisis of masculinity. This is really important for your glossary. And it's this idea that men really no longer know what's expected of them. And so they've become insecure about their identity because their jobs have changed, because there's new opportunities for women, because there's conflicting messages in the media about what it is to be a man. They no longer know how to behave, and it's begun this crisis of masculinity. Men don't know whether it's okay to cry because they're in touch with their feminine side, or in fact boys don't cry is another message given to them. That sort of thing means that they're in a bit of a crisis. So here are all the statements for you to have a go through. You can see some of them are specifically from various sociologists. You've got Dermot mentioned there, finding that some fathers want to be intimate fathers. They want to be closely linked to their children and get very involved in the childcare. If you remember, we came across that study in the previous lesson or so as well. And we've got this phrase of this new man. So this is important. Quite often we refer to people now as being a new man. And this is an idea of a man who's emotionally more aware than men used to be, take more part in the household, are happy to sit down and talk about their feelings, and so on and so forth. So use all these different ones there on the grid to fill in your table from the previous slide. Now, we haven't done the research methods unit yet, so we are going to just have a little dip of our toe in the water as to looking at some issues connected to research methods. And we're going to think about ethical issues. And an ethical issue in research is the idea behind ethics is ensuring that all the participants taking part in the research are not harmed in any way. So you're needing to think about who they are, how old they are, how you can keep what they say confidential, thinking about some of the things they say that might cause them some psychological harm, for example. So you're thinking about how best to get the people that you interview, or if you were doing questionnaires that complete your questionnaires, how do you keep them safe from harm? And harm really in this instance mostly means psychological harm, or emotional harm. So bearing that in mind, I just want you to have a think about whether there are any ethical issues involved in interviewing young men about how they view their role in society. So can you think of anything you would need to consider if you were going to interview, for example, I don't know, 5 18-year-old men about how they view their role in society? What things would you need to consider before you interviewed them? Thank you for listening today.